Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm going to wait a little bit for people to hop on. My name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks the IEP. I love what I do. I love consulting with parents and working with parents every day. And I am super excited to be offering as much information for you as possible. I was that mom who didn't know what I was doing, how I was supposed to do it or go about it. And I did things all wrong. And 12 years later, my daughter now has an amazing IEP. And for many years, people have been asking me to teach other parents how to really rock their IEP. And so that's how the name came about. And that's how I got started. So I just started offering information, and it just became an amazing thing for parents and a place for them to go to get information. And it's growing every single day. So with that said, today we are going to be talking about writing letters, emails, how you need to go about this, why emails are so important. And by the end, you are going to understand fully why IEPs are important. But at the same time, you're going to understand why the emails following an IEP or emails period and in general are crucial. Okay? So let's start off with why emails and putting things in writing is so important. So the reason why things are so important to put in writing is because if it never happened, let me rephrase. If you don't put it in writing, it never happened. So you can go to your child's IEP, you have this discussion, you leave the IEP, you feel like, oh, this is awesome. It went great. You're feeling good about it, and then all of a sudden you find out otherwise. They say something different, or you get the IEP if you didn't sign it and you're reading over it and it's nothing compared to what you actually had agreed upon. Or you sign the IEP, big mistake. Remember, I tell you, do not sign the IEP in your IEP. Take it home, think about it, relax, take a breather, read it again, read it again. Okay, if it takes you a week to read through it and really grasp it, then that's what you need to do. There's no real rush in signing that IEP. You want to get it signed, but you want to understand it first. You don't want to sign something and then you regret it later. Okay? So it's super important to put everything, and I mean everything, in writing. So let's just start with, you started from the beginning. If you watched my video from the beginning, we talked about what? Identification, evaluation, and diagnosis, right? So from that point forward, place forward, you want to have everything in writing. You meet with the school system, you have a discussion, you go home, you write a follow-up email on that discussion. Per my understanding, or you want to first say, I appreciate you meeting with me. Then you want to say, per my understanding, this is what we discussed and this is what is going to happen. If they don't respond to you, then you can understand that that is what was. But you're always going to create what's called a paper trail. Okay, this is so important. You have an IEP. So this is a meeting, you follow it up. You have an IEP, you don't sign the IEP, you get home, you fill out an email and state to everybody that was involved, I appreciate meeting with you. This is what we discussed. I will be reviewing the IEP and get back to you with any questions, comments, or changes that I want made. So basically, anytime you talk to the school system, whether that be by phone or in person, you're going home and you're following that up, that conversation up in an email. And you want to take it from the beginning to the end and try to keep it as in sync as possible. So first, I have my notes for me, so I stay on task with this because I can't even tell you how important this is. So many things with the IEP are important, and I'm not really sure what's more important than the other because it's so important, the whole process. that you just need to grasp the process so that you can move forward. So I was actually talking to a mom this morning, super early, and we were really talking about this and how a lot of discussions had been had in many of her meetings or on the phone, and then nothing happened. And she became extremely frustrated at, why isn't this happening? This is what we discussed. Why isn't it happening? And I asked her, I said, is it in your IEP? And she said, no. And so because what they discussed was not put into her IEP, the school system doesn't have to do it. So it was a conversation. It wasn't about implementation. So the first thing you want to think about is you don't want to write a letter out of anger. I've done this so many times, and I write this long letter and then I have to go back and edit the whole thing because I'm just nasty. And we all do this out of frustration, and you find something out that makes you mad, then you go and you write an email and it's just blasting somebody. Well, if you think about that, people aren't going to really listen to that. And you don't want to approach it that way, because once you send that email out, you can't change it. It's there, and all emails become part of your child's scholastic file. So all emails that you write, your follow-up emails to your IEPs, your follow-up emails to conversations, emails that you write are either a request, an event, a declining of a request, expressing appreciation. Yes, we do that too. Creating a paper trail, which is always. And so this is important that many of your emails are not nasty. Now, there's a time and place for everything, but most of your emails you want to keep very business-like. You want to write them in a business-type manner, okay? So you can be direct and to the point, which is how business is. It's not personal, and I say this all the time in IEPs, and I say this all the time in my emails. This is not personal. This is about my child, not about you. And so I'm very clear from the get-go of my intention. We all have to be clear on our intentions so people can grasp where we are, what we're doing, and what we plan to do, okay? So second, your letter's going to be read by strangers. It's going to be read by multiple different people, not just the people that you CC or send the email to. So you have to be cautious of what is in that email. Again, write it as if you were writing a formal business letter, okay? And I will provide copies of samples, and you can also find on the internet sample letters, but sometimes it's easier to see, something like I've written or another parent's written, so that you can kind of grasp that, because a lot of times online it's more of a formality, and then you're like, well, that doesn't really pertain to me, So I will provide that. And I'll put everything in the doc section of the page. Third, no one's going to wade through long letters, okay? So your first paragraph in your emails need to grab attention. It needs to be impactful so that they want to read the rest. So I make my emails very straightforward and frank, to be quite honest. I don't sugarcoat things. As you've probably gotten to know my personality, I don't sugarcoat things. I keep it straightforward, to the point. This is about my child. I'm not playing games with this. You shouldn't either. You need to take it seriously. You need to stay focused and try not to allow your emotions to take over to where that shows in your email. Go cry later. We all do. We have those emotions. We get frustrated. This is such an emotional experience and a tear down of our being. I can't tell you how many times I've left an IEP meeting just exhausted because I've poured out everything in advocating for my child, and it's exhausting fighting for something that should just happen. It's our children. They should have these things, but we have to fight so darn hard to have them happen. And we get frustrated as parents because it's just so unfair. The whole system is just unfair. But unfortunately, we have to fight for our kids. Unfortunately, we have to do whatever it is we have to do to make sure that they get everything that's needed and appropriate for them. And if that means that we're exhausted, if that means that we're emotionally torn down, if that means we, are crying at home to family members and loved ones, then that's what we have to do, because we just have to get up the next day and fight some more, because it's that important. You are the only one that is going to make a difference in your child's life and education, and they're depending on you. So you have the energy, you're moms, you've got it in you. So just prepare for a fight if need be. And if they work as a team, then that's even better. That's awesome. But like I've said, a lot of times it just doesn't work that way. So fourth, your letter is a personal statement about your situation, okay? So whatever it is that you are discussing, whether that be a request, if that's just documenting, what you talked about in a meeting, if it's declining something that was proposed to you, whatever it may be, remember that it is a personal statement coming from you as the parent. And again, this goes in their scholastic record, and it's not something that they can ignore, and they can't ignore your emails. If 2 days passes and they don't respond to your emails, you write another one. On October 1st, 2019, I wrote you an email regarding, and put the subject. All right, so subjects are very important. So the subject needs to be what you're writing about. And your child's name should be there, or the first letter of their first name and then the last name, okay? So you have to follow up. Follow up is key in keeping them accountable. So every 2 days, you're following up, following up, following up. After the fourth, you will state, this is my fourth email. I feel it is very unfair of the team to not communicate with me, which is what a team is all about. If I don't hear from you, then I will have to call the state and figure out what is the next step. If I need to make a state complaint based off communication and the lack thereof, then that is what I will do. Now, let me explain to you. Not always will a state complaint be founded just because they didn't communicate, because there's this really screwed up thing where they have to respond in the reasonable time, but there's no amount put there, okay? It's kind of like if your child gets extra time on a test, always put that time in the IEP. If there's no time, it's actually beneficial to you and your child, because the school system actually has to give them unlimited time because it wasn't put into the IEP. Okay, so the same thing with the report. It may not be founded, but it's going to cause them a heck of a lot of paperwork, and they're going to be pissed off. So they're going to know that even though it wasn't founded, they have to come up with all the proof saying that why they didn't respond. Okay, so even if it's not founded, they still have to respond to the state and say, this is what happened, this is our point of view, that blah, 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 in reference to their opposition or their issue when it comes to why they didn't respond to you. So even if it's not founded, they still have to do a ton of paperwork, which they're not going to like to do. So they're going to start responding to you at that point. And that's important because you just want to send the message that you're not playing games, that they need to respond to you. That's part of accountability. That's part of communication and part of being a team. And if they're not, then you're going to make a complaint, make them do all the paperwork, founded or not, and you're going to continue to hold them accountable. And so after the complaint, you're going to then follow up in an email and say, I hope that as a team, we can continue positive communication back and forth in a reasonable time frame. What I expect as a parent is for you to respond to me back within 48 hours. If this can't happen and it continues to be an ongoing issue, then I will just keep making complaints. I don't care if it's founded or not, because bottom line, you need to be held accountable, and the state also needs to be informed that this is what the county is doing. And you let them know that you have no problems taking that to a higher level, and it's not about the repercussion, it's about holding them accountable, and that you're going to hold them accountable. And if you make any type of report to the state, they actually have to be accountable, again, founded or not. So let's move forward with what you need to do in emails. So when you write an email, you need to think about three things. Okay? Why? Why are you writing the email? Is it because you're making a request? Is it because you're documenting a paper trail? Whatever it is, you need to, in your head, know why you are writing this email. The next thing is what? What do I want out of this email? I'm writing this email. What do I want to come of it? So you need to have that in your head, because we as parents, whether it be in an IEP or anything else, we have to be the ones who come up with the first solution, because they're not. They're going to make excuses or suggest things that typically us parents do not agree with. And so we have to come up with the solution, and who better to come up with the solution? We know our children best. So figure out what do you want and what your goals are for your child and what your goals are for that particular email, okay? And you can get pieces of paper and write that down, your why, your what, and then you want to focus on other thoughts. So you'll get a third piece of paper on just other thoughts. So your why, your what. So why are you writing the email? What do you want to get out of it? What are your goals for it? And then your other thoughts. Okay, so those are the three pieces of paper you want to write down and you want to focus on, so that when you sit down and you write the email, it's not written out in anger and frustration, and you're able to really focus on the core of that email and the point of it and what point you're trying to get across, okay? Because I have written 15-page emails before. Yes, I've done that insanity. But I have found that if my emails are 1 to 2 pages, they're more beneficial. So sometimes I'll dissect them into what it's about instead of write one whole email on multiple subjects. I'll write one email one day on one thing that I want to address, and then maybe 2 days later, something else. So unless it's serious and you need to address it right then, sometimes taking a week to write multiple emails and making them shorter is ideal, because people have short attention spans. And if you want things addressed in a quick way, you want to keep it, simple and to the point, and be very direct in your requests and what you're wanting out of that email. Okay. So one thing you want to keep out of these emails is you statements. And this is really hard. You don't want to say your staff failed, the school system failed, and making all those accusations. You actually want to, that they did. They failed. They suck. Whatever issue it is you had going on, you want to take that. So take the you failed, you did this, you did that, and switch it. How do I want to say this? You want to take the failure and switch it into the how they did it, okay? When this goal was written in my child's IEP, it worked for a period of time. I have found, in looking at my child, use their name, my child's IEP from the past year, that this goal has not been mastered. My request is to redo this goal so that it can be mastered, whether it needs to be brought down and cut in half or cut into thirds so that they can master it better. Or is this you need to think this, is this an issue with who is teaching and educating that information? A lot of times it's easier to go into the school, just sit there and take notes on your phone and review what's going on. So if there's something that you're interested in finding more about, that you're seeing that reading's not doing too well, you're not seeing a whole lot of progress, then go in and to the reading, and when they have reading, and watch. Don't say a word. Don't disrupt, nothing. And put that in the email in the request to go and see this. And you want to see it 2 or 3 times so that you get different kind of days. Kids have different, moods just like us, and you may end up going on a bad day. So go 2 or 3 times so you can get a real overall picture of what's going on. You have an issue with reading. You're seeing that the goals are not progressing and doing as well as you think they should. Why is that happening? Is it because they're not being educated properly? Is it because the right system is not put in place in how they are educated? So we have special needs children, so they don't typically learn like typical children. So how are they being educated? Okay, so is it an ABA type format? What type of format? There's different types of reading programs that are out there. Wilson and Fontes and Pinnell and all these different reading programs. So if one's not working, you have to be open as the parent to say, hey, this isn't working and this is why, based on the goals. We need to try something else. And then make the suggestion of why, request the IEP, discuss it, have proof with your goals and how they have not improved and mastered them, because that's the proof that you need. No, my child has not improved. This is how long it's been. We need, as a team, to review what is going on. I want to come in. I want to review my child when they're in reading. I want to be able to understand what is going on that my child is not mastering their goals. So in your emails, these are the things that you're putting down. So you go into, the school, you're reviewing the reading 2 or 3 times. You put what you reviewed and saw in writing the minute you got home, the first time, second time, and third time. So they may each be different. They may each be the same. But in each one, you as the parent need to put what you saw, what you observed. Then you need to put, this is what I propose as a solution. Always propose the solution, because sometimes it makes it easier for them to go with your solution than to think about it themselves. So it just depends on how your school system is, but a lot of times they will go with your solution if it makes sense and you have proof behind it. So always put those types of things in emails. Always be the problem solver. Okay, and then put that in writing, because if they ever come back and say, well, we didn't know what you wanted, you didn't tell us, or if they say something like, well, we tried this and this and this and it didn't work, so you need to come back as part of that team with your solution and always have it put into the parents' comments of the IEP so that it's always documented. So there in an IEP, there's a place where parents' concerns and comments go. All your concerns and comments that you discuss in your IEP belong there. Make sure they go in there, because it's something that as IEPs increase and you get more and more IEPs, you can then go back to that and say, hey, 1 year ago I said this, and you can put that in an email. You want to document everything that goes on, everything. So if you just get into the routine of anytime you talk to the school system, anytime you have a concern, anytime there's a behavior issue going on, whatever it may be, always put it in writing. Now, let me tell you a trick that I do. When I go into IEP meetings, I record them. So in Virginia, you do not have to tell them. So I put my phone on the table. I record the conversation of the IEP. Okay, in your state, if you have to let them know, you put the phone on the desk. You say, I am recording this IEP. Today is October 1st, 2019. Everybody who is part of the team is here, and you let them know, I want to let you know that I'm recording this IEP, and leave it at that. You don't have to ask their permission. So then you record, and then what you can do is you can then download the app called Rev, R-E-V, and you can upload the recording to them and they will transcribe it for you. So you will actually have it in writing. I want to say it's like 15 cents, 20 cents, something like that. It's super cheap, and you send them the recording. You, of course, keep a copy, and then you get a transcription literally written out for you as to what was discussed in the IEP. So not only do you have the recording, but you have it written out in that format so that you have it as proof. And this is so important. So I tell parents to do that all the time. There's also a Rev recording where you can record all phone calls that you have. You just push it and it records the conversation. You can even choose to have it beep so the other party knows that you're recording, or you can choose to not have it beep. And I do this with all conversations. It's super important to document everything, and then you can take that phone call recording, upload it to Rev, have them transcribe it, and you have everything in writing, okay? Do not give it to the school. Let me say that again. Do not give your recordings or the transcriptions to the school. You can put in an email, I recorded this conversation, I uploaded it to Rev, and also have it in a written out transcription document. Let them know that. Let them know what you did. They may even say, can I have a copy? No, you can't. So unless you have to use that as proof, if you go to due process or for the state, you do not give the school system that recording, ever. So let's move on. So if you're heated, let's talk about if you're just extremely mad. The IEP didn't go right. You're reviewing goals and you're just ticked off because the school system said that your child mastered something and they really didn't because you tested them yourself or you had other people test them and there was no success. So you're really ticked off, all right? Because the school system will lie to you and this is extremely frustrating because how do you work as a team if they're going to be dishonest? But you have to understand the administration is political and that's all they do, right? So allow your time to cool off, take a breather, and just understand that you're going to put this in writing and that no matter what, you're going to deal with this, but you got to breathe and you have to just focus and grab something to eat, whatever it may be, and just take at least an hour before you start writing. If you're negotiating with the school for special education services, you really want to make sure that you don't share everything. Parents think that they have to share everything with the school, and you kind of let the cat out of the bag before it really needs to be let out, you know? And then you basically give away all your secrets before you have to, and there's nothing like the fear of unknown. So remember this when discussing with the school. Let them know you got this, that you're knowledgeable, but you want to leave that fear factor of them thinking, what is she going to do? You know, so you'll make comments like, no matter what happens here, I really want to work as a team. I want us to be able to work together so that my child gets what's needed and appropriate. I've said this before, don't ever say what's best for your child. You want to say what's needed and appropriate because that is what the school system is required to do. They are not required to do what's best for your child. So you want to make sure of that, all right? And you don't want to let things out before they need to be let out. So you want to say something like, I understand my rights. And you put this in writing. I understand my rights. I understand that I have the option to go to the state and make a state complaint. I understand that I have the option to due process. However, I want to work as a team. So you're kind of throwing out what you know and then pulling back. You know, it's kind of like, it's so stupid, but this is the game we have to play as parents because they're playing a game with you. They're saying, oh, we can only do this, we can't do that. And they're playing this game with you, prolonging what they really need to do for what's needed and appropriate for your child. So you're just going to play the game and you're going to play it better. And so you're saying, I understand this and I understand that. However, I want to work together. I want to be a team. I understand as the parent that I am part of that team. I am part of the decision-making process. And I really don't want to have to make a complaint. I really don't want to have to go to due process and other things that I know I have a right that I can do because I really want to work as a team. And I know you do too. So that's what you're saying. Does that make sense? So to negotiate, you don't want to throw everything out there. You want to leave that fear of the unknown. So the next thing you want to understand is never threaten over email. Okay, so you want to stay away from those type of tactics so that they don't use that against you, okay? Because you've got to remember that this is going on your child's scholastic record and they can use those types of things against you and you don't want that. So again, we talked about the fear of unknown. I have my notes here, so I'm going through things so I stay focused. So there's a power in information. All right. So I'll just give you an example. If you go to the doctor, all right, and the doctor says, well, we think it's this, but, there's a couple things that it may be. You go for an ailment and you say, I don't know what's going on. These are the things that are going on. Oops. And you say, I'm frustrated. I really want to know what's going on. And the doctor does not do any tests. And they just say, well, it could be this, 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 and this. Let me prescribe this medication. Or if they say, you know what, I'm not sure. It could be a multitude of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you over to the hospital or send you to the lab, and we're going to find out what that is so that we can get you the results. The results will take 1 to 3 days, whatever it may be, and then we'll know exactly what it is. Do you see the difference? One's a who knows, and one's a we're going to find out. So there's a power in information, okay? And you can feel that difference. So if you don't feel like you get your information from them and you just get that whole, I don't know, it could be this, this, and this, then you make sure that you have the solution to get the result. So don't accept, it could be this, this, and this, and, we can try these things, etc. No, get the result. Get to the result as quickly as possible and get to the information and get to what is factual and not let's try this, this, and this. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times where trial and error is something we have to do, especially with our children. However, if there is a way to grasp that information, then you want to do that. All right. So another thing is don't make assumptions. There's a book that I love and highly recommend. It's called The 4 Agreements. And not making assumptions in any relationship is important because we can get ourselves so worked up on assumptions and thinking things. And then we actually talk to the person and it's totally not what they were thinking in their head. Have you ever done that? Where you just get yourself all riled up over something that had you just had a conversation, it would have been resolved right away. But at that point, you have gotten yourself all in a tizzy, and then you have the conversation and you kind of feel stupid because you assumed all this stuff and that's not where they were. So don't make assumptions, directly ask the question. So you got to remember you're writing letters to a stranger who possibly may or may not have the power to resolve the problem. So you have to, as the parent, always provide a solution. My hair's in my face. Okay. All right. The next thing is you want to, like I said in the beginning, write your letters as a business letter. So formal, you want to make sure the executive director of special services is on that email. Any gen ed teachers and special education teachers. If you want to add the psychologist or school counselor, that's fine too. And if it pertains to speech, OT, PT, or whatever services your child needs, then you can add them. If it does not pertain to them, leave them out. They don't need to be part of that conversation. Okay? So that's important. So you you send the email to the director of student services and possibly the special education teacher. Okay? Whoever your child's case manager is. So you'll send the email to them and the director of services, but you could also CC the director of services. Then you'll CC anybody else. Okay? So that's just a formality. So the person that it's sent to knows they're the ones who are required to respond. Everybody else is CC'd, so if they have to get together, come to a response, and then email you back, they know that they can do that. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm sending this to you, but I'm CCing them so they know what's going on, or you can collaborate with them to come to some sort of an agreement or whatever the case may be to respond back to you. The other thing, when you write emails, you want to make sure that they're chronological, okay? So you want to make sure that you can add dates to what you're saying. So if you had an IEP, today's October 1st, I'm just using October 1st, you say on October 1st, 2019 at 1 p.m., we had an IEP meeting. This is what was discussed, Okay. So if you're responding to something that you're angry about or you're mad and it's something that you've already addressed, then you'll say in an email, on October 1st, 2019, we discussed this. It is now October 15th, and nothing has been done in reference to what we discussed and what was going to happen. I need a response within the next 48 hours as to why this hasn't been implemented or happened, and I want to understand why this has not occurred when this was something we discussed at the IEP on October 1st, 2019. So make sure you have dates and times and any information to let them know that you are documenting this, and by the time and by the date, okay? I have an IEP coming up soon and I have no idea what to do or where to start. All right, we will address that. It will be my first one. Okay, so that's an important one. So we will definitely address that. Not in this live, but I promise to address that with you, okay? So D'Amica, understand that I'm going to help you. The first IEP is so scary, I know. So just bear with me. But you'll get a lot of information here on emails and how to follow up in your first IEP. So the next thing you want to address is make sure your letters are easy and clear to understand. Okay, so what I mean by that is you don't want to use all kind of crazy words, or just keep it simple, and simple is the easiest way to get things out. Be very direct and try to keep emotions out of it. You don't want to say things like, this made me feel, you don't want to say stuff like that, all right? Because they don't care how you feel, honestly. They just don't. And it's not their job to address how you feel, all right? Go to your husband, go to your loved ones, etc. But don't tell them how you feel because they don't care, all right? All right, Angie asked, what is the duties of the advocate? Okay, well, I'm an advocate. So our duties are one thing I do on my service page is I offer 1 to hour consultations with you and a VIP package, which is one of my favorites. So the 1 hour, you send me your IEP, any type of evaluations ahead of time so I can review it before our 1 hour conversation and we don't waste time. So I'm going to get back to the IEPs, guys, but let me answer this one question. So that's the 1 hour. It goes pretty quick. Not always do we kind of get to a resolution, which is really what I try to get to. But at least you're started on the right track. The 2 hour, the same thing. You get me your evaluations, you get me your IEP, anything that I can use to read, understand, and get a picture of your child. And then when we talk, I get more of a picture of your child. And then the goal is to sit down and figure out, and this is done on a Zoom so we see each other and have a conversation so that we can have a resolution. What is it you want? What are you looking for? What are the things that you think your child needs? We're going to figure out what's needed and appropriate for them. I'm going to ask you about their goals that are in their IEP. Where are they right now? How do you feel about that? I could go on and on, Angie, of the things that I talked to you about, but the goal is to get you fully prepared, have the information, know what to say and how to say it, and how to get the things that your child deserves and needs. And so then the 4 hour is when you don't know anything, you don't know where to start, kind of like D'Amica, you're just like, I'm ready to pull my hair out, I want what's best for my child, again, needed and appropriate in their words, and you don't know what to do. You're which is fine because we all have been there, all of us, even myself. And so the 4 hours amazing because then you get the whole layout. We create a plan of action. If it takes more than the 4 hours, so be it. Then we'll split the time, maybe in 2 days, something like that. But my goal in that VIP is start to finish. Where do you start? Whether that's evaluations, identification, what their disability is, and diagnosis, or are we addressing an IEP that's already been handled that is totally screwed up and we need to reevaluate and figure out what a new plan is going to be and a plan of action. Then you're going to get something completely written out for me as to what you do and what your goals are and how you're going to implement that in the IEP. So that's the 4 things that I offer. And the goal of the advocate is either to go and to your meeting and advocate for you with the knowledge that we have that you provided to us and what your goals are and what you're wanting for your child, or we prepare you, like I do in my services, for that IEP to go rock it yourself. So we do different types of things, but the goal is to get you the goals that you need. Sometimes it's not a one and done. IEPs aren't a one and done. So it may be the advocate got you one or two steps further, and then you go to another IEP meeting and you get one or two steps further than that. You have to understand that we're not miracle workers, but a legit advocate knows their stuff. By hearing them, you know they know their stuff, and you want to make sure you follow them a little bit to make sure that they know their stuff and know their laws and stay up to date on how the laws change. And you want to know that they're going to be able to advocate for your child as best as possible, and that you guys have a working relationship to where they can really help you succeed in nailing this. And that is their goal. Okay. So that is what an advocate does. Our duties are to help guide you in your path to one hell of an IEP. So does that answer your question, Angie? All right, so let's move forward with emails, okay? So I'm just going to give you some letter writing tips, and hopefully that helps you. So the first thing is make it clear, and we've already reviewed this, so I'm just reviewing now. The next thing is make it as short as possible. If you have to address one thing, write another email the second day or the third day, and keep writing short emails. Their attention span is short. They don't have a lot of time. You want to make sure in your first paragraph that you get them and that it's impactful, so they want to read the rest of that email. The next thing is you want to make it alive, okay? You want to make sure you speak directly to who you're speaking to, so the person that you're sending the email to, even though you're CCing other people. Good, I'm glad, Angie. Even though you're CCing other people, you're still directing that email to that one person, okay? So you want to make sure that you're directly speaking to that person and the readers, and you want to make sure that you give them a visualization of what you're looking for and why. And so as long as you remember the what and why, you're good as far as your email. Read it again before you press send. Put it in your drafts for a minute, come back and read it again before you press send, because once it's sent, and it goes in their Scholastic record. However, don't be afraid if your emails go in Scholastic records, honestly, okay? So I have so many emails in my Scholastic record. If they were to go back to the very beginning, more power to them, because that's a lot of emails. So don't be worried or get anxiety or anything like that. But just remember that the more direct you are, the more clear you are, the better. All right. And then make it right. Make sure that there's no errors. Make sure that what you're saying is what you mean. Mean what you say. Okay. And stick to it. Don't be afraid, which is what they will try to do. One thing that the school system and a lot of businesses are trained on is this really screwed up way of communication. All right, so it's a way to get one over on you, to make you second guess yourself as a parent, to make you think in your head like, oh, well, maybe I'm not thinking about this right. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I don't know best and they know best because they're the experts. Don't do that. Don't do that. Ever. If you ever feel like you're second guessing yourself, know right then and there that you're wrong. You should not second guess yourself. That means what you said was right. Okay? It's almost like the reverse psychology that they're doing with you. So if you ever feel, unless it's totally crazy, screwed up stuff, and we all can second guess, we all can say, okay, I was unreasonable. 99.9% of the time, if they say something that makes you second guess yourself, that is meaning they are trying to change the way you think so that you go with their way. Know right away that what you said, what you proposed was right. Follow that. Okay? Post a 1 below if you understand that. Post a 1 below if you understand that. If you ever second guess yourself, that you are not going to do that again. You are going to go and run with what you said, because 99.9% of the time they're trying to change the way that you think, and they're going to change the way that you feel about yourself and change the things that you know about your child, and they don't know. Okay? They don't know these things about your child. All they do is educate. And they don't know all the ins and outs of your child. You do. So don't second guess yourself. I call, when parents second guess yourself, typically it's the school's way of being afraid of where you're leading. And a lot of times when you're leading a certain way, you're going with your gut. And if you go with your gut at all times, you are going to be on the right path. All right, so that is it. If you have questions, please post them below. I hope I gave you a lot of information on emails, how they should be written, the what and why. There's a lot that it entails. If you have questions, again, post them below. Let me know if you got something out of this and if there's something more I need to address or something more I need to add to this. I'm going to put closed captions on this, so for anybody who needs that to really, I'm visual and auditory, so I like to see and hear, so I will be putting that on. And, remember that first impressions are important across the board. If I meet a service provider and my first impression is not so good, I've learned to run with that. I'll typically give it one more shot, but a lot of times it'll eat at me. So look at emails like that. We'll talk about that subject another time. All right, that's a totally different subject. But I'm saying that because the same thing with emails. If something is eating at you, address it in an email. And as long as you address it in the most appropriate way, it's documented. You don't want to say, I feel. That's not a business letter, okay? Keep your IEP letters, your emails, and formal, okay? If it's formal, feelings are not involved. And that's a hard thing for us parents because we feel. We feel strongly about what happens with our children. So try to remove the feeling and speak from your education, the knowledge you're getting here, and you really want to feel knowledgeable. My goal for you is for you to feel knowledgeable and empowered. And the more knowledgeable and empowered you feel, the faster you're going to rock your child's IEP. Go with your gut, and anything that is eating at you, and you're going to know that. It's going to eat at you. Then the next day you're going to wake up, it's still eating at you. The next day you're going to wake up, it's still eating at you. That's the time to put it in an email. So instead of I feel, it's I have something I need to address because. And then you need to state 3 things. All right? There's a power in 3. There could be 10 things. Only state the top 3. Okay? That's all they're going to read anyway. So if you have an email and you got 10 things that are eating at you, address the top 3 because you can address the rest in the IEP. So if something's eating at you, it's I have an issue with, I need to address this. I am writing this email because. So start it off with that. Address 3 things, and then at the bottom of the email you need to state, on October 1st, 2019, I am requesting an IEP meeting. I understand this meeting has to be scheduled within 30 days. I am excited to find out the date and time of the IEP before this date, which is the 30th day, okay? And so then you're stating to them that you know the law. They got 30 days to schedule that IEP meeting, all right? Then you want to state, if you work and you're busy, etc., state 3 or 4 different times that you're available on this date, this date, this date, and this date. I'd appreciate your consideration on my availability, okay? And then leave it at that. So that's how you'll address things that are eating at you in an email. So that's just another way to address things. And you want to address everything. So, all right. I guess that's it for today. So hopefully you enjoyed this on emails. Hopefully I answered tons of questions. Post messages below if you have any more questions, or if you need something responded to, or if you have a question in reference to something that I said, then make sure to post it below so that I can respond. Have a good Tuesday. I will see you next Tuesday live. As I say every week, I'm going to hopefully go live at least 2 or 3 times a week, but that is coming. It's been really extremely busy with, answering emails, having different services that I'm providing clients going on, and I'm just staying extremely busy. So I'm going to try to go live 2 or 3 times a week, but I'm also going to start blogging and offering information there. My preference is live. I love it. In my mind, it gives you a way to get to know me. I get to know you because you communicate with me, and then I recognize your name, and it becomes more of a family atmosphere versus something writing. Because if I write something, you're not going to know my tone. You're not going to know my passion behind it. I can put in writing, this is so important, but you're not going to feel that importance without hearing me. So I will still blog because I did a poll and I think live won, but you still wanted to have blogs. So I will blog, but a lot of my blogs I'll also go live on so that you get both. So hopefully you're happy with that. And I see the hearts and thumbs up, so that's great. And I will talk to you guys soon, and have a great Tuesday. Take care.